So, recently I had one of those depressing phases that hit me a tad hard, and like most people, I felt a little lost with myself in that one moment. So rather than focusing on one of the many videos I've lined up for myself, I decided the best therapeutic thing for me to do was to find a favourite childhood game, drop it in, or download in this case, and just have a good time. And the one I went with was none other than Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. Within the first few minutes of replaying it, I could already sense those bad feelings being washed away, and about 30 minutes in of playing, I just said, screw it, this is my next video. Now, ever since I first decided to jump into the YouTube game back in 2015, this game has been at the top of my list. But while I knew that I wanted to share my love for this game with the world, I also knew that I wanted to talk about it in my own trademark way, so as to not feel too similar to some of the others who had already talked about it before. And the way I decided to do that is just by simply listing out 50 reasons as to why I honestly love this game so much. These can range from smart gameplay decisions to hidden secrets to small but humorous details to even personal things that help me out in life. I can't say that every reason's gonna make sense, but honestly, it all kind of just adds up together to create a game that just fully speaks to me in the end. Either way, hope you all get a kick out of it. Right off the bat, the game hits you with a fun and charismatic introduction to our two heroes with their iconic Naughty logo, but it's the way the title of the game just crashes out of the dark abyss and reveals to us the colourful and imaginative world that we are about to explore that gets to me every time, even after 15 years. Unlike other 3D collectathons before it, Jak and Daxter starts out by establishing that it exists in a world that actually questions its existence, setting up a goal of discovery for the game series by uncovering the mysteries behind its creation that most games of its genre wouldn't give a second thought to. This is one of my favourite story bits in the whole game, as we're given a brief look at the world, catching obvious points of interest like the village, the waterfall on the beach, and the top of the Precursor temple. But we can also catch the outline of the dirigible flying over the swamp, as well as the snowy mountains even further back from that. As with its namesake, Geyser Rock has many huge geysers on it, so much so that they can be seen from both the mainland and from Misty Island. As one of the earliest games to show excellent examples of realistic animation in games, Jak's movements are astonishingly detailed for its time, with him needing to take a second to pick up speed when moving in a direction, skidding when needing to move back fast, trudging while in shallow waters, along with slowing down when going up slopey surfaces and even speeding up when going down them. May as well get this one out of the way, the victory poses are just a pure delight every time. From the iconic energized music that builds up to the explosion of energy displayed by Daxter, it just makes every power cell you come across feel so worthwhile just to see this level of joy from our heroes. The Jak and Daxter series manages to find a fine balance between realistic and cartoony. While it certainly doesn't reach the Looney Tunes-esque levels of other 3D platformers, we can still see small touches to things like the size of Jak's hands and feet when he attacks, chests and boxes wobbling while using Blue Eco, or just Daxter pinning himself on the floor after a high drop. Even though Daxter doesn't ever really play a role in any of Jak's abilities, the way he's animated as Jak jumps, punches, spin kicks along with so much else helps to add even more detail to how alive our heroes feel. Unlike power-ups from other games, Eco is explained through the game's opening as the life energy of the planet, providing a reason for their appearance across the game, as well as promoting kind of an environmental message at the same time when you think about it. While I agree that many 3D games of the 90s are still well deserving of their praise even today, one thing that usually ends up being a huge flaw for me is how awkward the camera can be with some of them. Jak and Daxter thankfully does not have this problem, with its camera feeling so smooth all the time, being positioned at just the right distance, and knows when to take control when areas like these ever arise. The many architectural styles used throughout the game are some of my favourite and have been a huge source of artistic influence for me over the years. From the Eastern style huts, to the junk-like creations of the lurkers, to the almost otherworldly designs used on anything related to the Precursors. Fun fact, I actually used Sandover Village when pitching one of my design projects while at university. It's honestly hard to label the game's many locations as levels due to the fact that unlike so many other platformers, there's no real doorway between each of the game's zones, and you're instead just simply moving with ease from one to the other, creating a world that can almost feel completely seamless at times. Rather than having distracting text get displayed offering out hints post-tutorial, the game simply has Daxter pass along advice whenever the need ever arises.
Those tower doohickeys scattered all over the jungle must redirect the eco beam. Maybe we should go root out the fisherman. I heard he was in the jungle fishing by the lower river.
Auga! Auga! Dive for the
despite the fact that the prize for the most popular hero with oversized ears is likely to go to this green bastard. The extra large ones used in all the humanoid characters in the Jak and Daxter series have helped in adding to the franchise's identity, as well as that of the many unique characters who appeared over the course of the series. Having a game with a day and night cycle is certainly nothing new nowadays, but to have a fully natural one back in the early 2000s was a big deal, displaying a range of colours thanks to the game's fantastic lighting and helping to set different moods for locations during different times of the day. The designs of all the NPCs that are scattered about the game all have unique looks to them, but it's the little details on them that really help to make them feel at home in this crazy yet wondrous world. Whether it be Samus's weird obsession with wood, the Birdwatcher's rather poorly knitted outfit, or the hands-free lantern and canary cage hats the miners both wear. The Blue Eco launch pads are one of the game's most kick-ass inclusions just from the sheer adrenaline you get as you blast yourself off the ground and see yourself reach those incredible heights. The fishing minigame you need to complete in order to get to Misty Island is something I've always had a fun time with, to the point that I even kind of wish they would let you return to it whenever you want, just so you can see how big of a high score you can reach. While the game doesn't have many notable voice actors, it does have one that many should recognise, none other than the voice of Batman himself, Kevin Conroy, playing the Oscar-worthy role of the Fisherman. Yeah, it's not a huge role, but it's worth noting just to hear that joyous laugh from him. One thing that took me quite by surprise was how Misty Island, where our story began, was in fact its own level in the game. The idea of going back seemed like an unusual step at first, as it seemed like it was just there to introduce the villains and set up Daxter's fate, but because we had already had a taste of what the island was like, it really made the return feel like a treat, as we could uncover more about what was going down and see more from the lurker culture as well. Jak's deaths may not be as silly or as over the top as Crash's, but each one of Daxter's not so motivational final words are a ton of fun to watch and actually dampen the annoyance of losing.
I was right behind you, Jak! Really? I was. I'll say something really teary at the funeral, like, "Oh, I gotta get Shane back now!" Step 1, stay alive. Step 2, think about not doing something like that again!
While on the subject of death, dying in a video game can suck, especially in those games when you know you're going to have to wait a good while to jump back in. Jak and Daxter, however, manages to start a Naughty Dog tradition of wasting no time when it comes to spawning so as to get you back in the game ASAP. Sound effects in games can add a lot to their identity, and there's honestly a lot of unique ones here, from collecting Precursor orbs to jumping through portals to falling into Dark Eco. There's just a huge library of them buried deep under the surface of this game. The Zoomer may not be my first pick if I were ever to partake in a video game race, but the smoothness of how it controls still makes it feel well suited for Jak and can even channel Eco just like him as well. Though many consider it to just be Jak and Daxter as the heroes of this story, the fact that Kira and Samos will move with you to each of the sages' huts helps to keep that little bit of motivational support throughout and allow them to have even more relevance to the game's plot than just in the opening. The music used throughout the game may not be as recognisable as some of the more iconic video game soundtracks, but for me there's something just so atmospheric about it all. Notable tracks including Sandover Village, the Precursor Basin, the boss fight with Claw, and Sentinel Beach, which I oftentimes will leave on when I need to just close my eyes, lay down for a bit and relax. Another thing worth noting about the music is how there are actually multiple versions of different tracks which the game will switch over to whenever near certain characters or when in different sections of areas. The voice work for the Oracle done by Michael Gollum adds a lot to the mystery and power behind the Precursors, even if he does sound very similar to Dr. Claw from the old Inspector Gadget cartoons.
From before time, I have watched and waited for the true hero to return.
The wildlife in the game has quite an interesting range of unique mixed species such as yak owls, lightning moles, flutfluts, hip hogs, along with even more strange creatures appearing throughout the series. The level of expression used on each of the very distinctive characters lends itself so much to the overall charm throughout the world. This is especially important when it comes to Jak, who despite his limited dialogue is able to react well to the characters and situations around him. Similar to how Yoshi plays, Jak can reach some of those uncertain jumps by spin kicking in the air to get that slight boost needed before gravity starts to kick in again. It's never explicitly told if this was meant to be a fundamental part of the gameplay across any of the Jak games, but it's just another example of getting the most out of a very easygoing control layout. One piece of game design I'm a big fan of nowadays is the way environments are constructed so as to have your path twist and turn in ways that you don't realise that you've made it back to a familiar location. It's not something that's predominantly present here, but notable examples include Geyser Rock, the dark cave section in the Spider Caves, and the whole of Snowy Mountains. Most of the time, games tend to choose between having their levels act either linear or non-linear. Here though, we actually see the structure change often, with locations like Sentinel Beach and the Precursor Basin allowing almost for full freedom, while the Boggy Swamp and Lost Precursor City acting more linear-like, with the occasional split path now and then. The explorer living in Sanoe Village seems like a fairly basic character, but if you notice in his opening scene, he refers to himself as Jack's uncle, which would explain the similar colours the two share. But even more than that, Simmons mentions Jack's uncle after entering the dirigible, almost as if Jack is walking in his footsteps. Now, if we can only find out how they can both be related, given what we know later on in the series. Another added detail that helps characterise a level's environment is with its enemies, and for the most part, each one of Jak and Daxter's locations come with a fair share of different enemies, whether they be lurkers sent to cause trouble or creatures native to that particular area. At the very start of the game, it's clear that Samos has very little faith in our heroes, but as you progress and complete more and more of his missions, you can really start to see him come around, eventually even calling them heroes at the end. While we do get a brief glimpse of the villains in the game's opening, as far as we know, our journey does not centre on them, at least at this point. It's only until later that we learn that our goal, to find the man named Goal, has been to find the villain of the game, helping to give us that turning point from when our young hooligans have to become bona fide heroes. Jak and Daxter may not share much in their initial design, seeing as how one is a few feet tall and orange, but you may have noticed that they both share a pair of nifty goggles on them. On top of that, the sculptor's muse appears to have a beard similar to that of its owners, and Boggy Billy and his hip hog Farley both wear hats covering their eyes. For some, Jak 2 can be seen as the starting point to Naughty Dog's rise in cinematic games, but in the Precursor Legacy you can see techniques like informational camera positions along with smooth pans and zooms that lend themselves to the game's energy, comedy and storytelling, helping to ready them for what was to come next. When you think about it, in most early games like these, you don't always get an inside look at the minions to the main villain, but with the lurkers, we get to see their development, their architecture, their technology and weaponry. Similar to Jack's uncle, Gordy and Willard only seem to let you buy power cells from them rather than sending you out on errands. However, given you've bought all power cells from them, they'll pass along hints like the lurkers chewing on the Spider Cave support beams, as well as the hidden entrance that can lead towards where you can unlock the capped yellow eco vents. Another thing that certainly isn't big nowadays is how new paths can be opened thanks to you completing minor tasks such as saving the Flutfug egg, as well as unlocking the capped blue and yellow eco vents. Again, nothing that's especially big nowadays, but definitely something that opened my mind back in the day. Even though the villains only end up making a few brief appearances throughout the game, there are plenty of missions and locations that help in foreshadowing their plans, whether it be trying to get inside the Dark Eco silo on Misty Island, or the Precursor robot arm being pulled out from Boggy Swamp, or even the full Precursor robot that's being dug out from inside the Spider Caves. Another indication of how dedicated Naughty Dog were to the game's world building is with the Precursor alphabet being created. This led to a number of messages being discovered throughout the series, including the company's name being written on every Precursor orb, to the eco vent spelling out power and strength. Even the map that came with the game had a whole prophecy hidden away on it, that I sadly no longer have with me. As mentioned, the sages are able to harness their magic thanks to the life energy of the world that is Eco, but throughout the game you can see from their designs and from their homes how technology has played a big part in allowing them to understand their powers more, and maybe even protect the world better at the same time. The climax of the game set in Golem Maya Citadel manages to do what all video games of this manner should do, have you push all your skills to their fullest with combat, eco powers and plenty of platforming. Throughout the game, we use eco to benefit ourselves in many ways, but in the final boss fight, it's very much used against us for the first time. Starting out by using blue eco to cut into the silo, then green eco to create bulky dark eco lurkers, then moving on to bombs formed from red eco, until finally ending up using a cannon powered by yellow eco. The final bit at the end, with Jak being encompassed by light eco, is pretty much my Super Saiyan moment for me. Sure, it's only there for a brief second, but that's what makes it feel so godlike in my opinion. It doesn't take a hardcore Naughtalk fan like myself to see the similarities to Plant and Samus' hut to the much more hungrier ones you can fall before in the Crash series. But is it me, or does it feel like these guys are almost trying to outdance someone at the end of the game? I wonder. And lastly, after beating the final boss, most players may not end up completing the game's climax with all power cells, leading to this line by Daxter.
Oh boy, here we go again!
However, if you already collected all of them up to this point, you get this awesome line instead.
We're heroes, remember? We have 100 power cells.
And there you have it, folks, 50 reasonable and, well, kind of not so reasonable reasons as to why this is still one of my favourite games of all time. If it wasn't clear already, I strongly recommend playing this game, which you can pick up on multiple PlayStation devices. As for what I think about some of the other games in the series, I'll cover those in later videos that will likely go down a little differently from this one. Hope you're all doing well, and any support that helps to continue the growth of this channel is always appreciated. Thanks again, and until next time.